Good evening and welcome to Livid Comics Lair. Tonight's guest is from Warehouse 9 Productions, which makes film and comic books. His new book out is called Bob, Non-Union Psychic, The Big Book of Bob, Volume 1. So please welcome our guest, Mr. Lance Lucero. What's up, everybody?
Howdy.
Yay!
We're here infesting you across Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch, just so everybody knows watching where they can get this show. So, yes. How are you doing, Lance? Thanks for coming on.
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Excited. Paul from ASAP Comics reached out to us, and he was nice enough to send a copy of the book, so we got a chance to check that out, which we'll talk about. But we're excited to chat here tonight.
Hey, it's going to be awesome. I am too. This is cool.
Great.
I like Rogierio's new. Rogierio must be the Yule log now with his new background, so I think it's good. It's a good look, Rogierio. So.
Christmas is early.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It's my son actually asked me to take out his fake little mini Christmas tree tonight to put in his bedroom already, and I was like, buddy, can we wait till Thanksgiving, please? My 3-year-old daughter thought it would trick Santa Claus into thinking Christmas was tomorrow if we put it out, though. So it was a hard sell on waiting, but
Sound logic, though.
it is. And she kept saying it over and over, and I'm like, it's not going to change no matter how many times you say it. But this is the joy
Santa
of.
might get it right after a few years. He might have it down at some
Yeah.
point in the game. Right?
Yeah, I said you can't trick Santa Claus. You can't trick him when Christmas is. But anyways.
Good logic, though. I like her negotiation skills, John.
So
That's clever, so she's on to something.
she's 3. That's not a good sign. Yeah.
Right? You gotta watch out for that one.
So
Might be tricking you when she's
16.
16.
And so my son's 7, she's 3, and they like conspire against us. It's very Children of the Corn-esque. Like I'm a little nervous for the future. Like they'll sit there and whisper to each other. I'm like, you're not putting the tree out tonight. You were naughty. You'll have to earn it another night. And I hear her whispering to him, well, are we gonna put out the Christmas tree? You want to go get it? Like she was trying to sneak down to the basement, like my 3-year-old, to get the tree. I'm like, what is wrong with you two? But. So that's my. I was a single dad this weekend. My wife was gone, so I have to vent about parenthood for a minute.
That's all right.
Yeah, but anyways, so I had a chance to look at the book, and I know we were talking offline a bit, but really dig the whole vibe. Sometimes you get that perfect world of, the story and the art just fitting perfectly, and the whole concept of Bob with the art style is just like the perfect mix. So my question right off the bat is, did you guys talk about the art style before going into it, or was this something he just came to you with based off reading the script, and it just kind of was this perfect marriage?
It was started off as a perfect marriage. I mean, I think at the time, co-writer and editor Adam Voley, he put the word out. I think it was digital webbing. For artists, and we're going back like 6 years ago, and just a brief description of what we were up to, and we wanted to see who would apply, and we were overwhelmed by a lot of applicants. I mean, it was pretty impressive what's going on out there. We were getting stuff from all over the world: Korea, Spain, Indonesia, Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, America, Australia, and we actually kind of had to cut it short, like after 2 weeks, because we were getting too many applicants. And it was a hefty weed out process. It was like, okay, let's look to see who might fit the style of this script. And as we were, we were ticking off the artists who were fantastic. We got to our top 3, and what it came down to also is a lot of people boast they can handle sequential art, and then you find out they really can't. But these top 3, they nailed it. But the style that Francisco Resendiz had out of Mexico, it was just striking us. It was like, maybe we should go a little bit, cartoony. And then when it gets violent, and it kind of is a little bit more poignant, I think, because you don't expect it. But his character designs were amazing. Just what he was doing on his own with his sequential art and his character designs, it was like, what? I think this is our guy. So the test is I sent him 2 pictures for the design of Bob, and that was a picture of Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly. And I said, what can you do with this? And when he came back with the character designs, we were like, he's our guy. This is our guy. And then we were just off and running.
That's awesome. Yeah, because you could have a great story, and if the art style, even if the art's great, if the art style doesn't fit the story, it can really take away from the overall experience. And that was the first thing that caught my eye was, reading the whole synopsis of it and then seeing it. It just fits so well. So I think you guys made the right choice. I was actually going to pop up here one of the images of the main character, Bob, to give the viewers an idea of when you just mentioned Elvis and Buddy Holly. As soon as you said that, I could see. So that's really cool. A side note too, by the way, my wife doesn't read comics, but I have a feeling she might want to read this one because she actually owns a hair salon. So to have a hero that actually cuts hair is a unique approach. So
that's something that we're we didn't know we would necessarily bank on, with a catchphrase, renegade psychic, professional hairstylist. But when you say that second part, people look at you like, what? And it's like, nah, the guy's got a profession. He doesn't have a bat cave. He doesn't have a trust fund. He doesn't have a fortress of solitude. He's a small business owner, and either he makes it or he doesn't. So that's how it works.
I love that. Yeah, I watched some of the Comic Crusaders interview you did, and the line you said where the barbershop is his bat cave. I thought that was perfect. So
yeah.
But tell us a little bit about the story. It's so unique. I mean, I was reading through the cast of characters on your website there, and it's just there's so much to it. So why don't you give us a little rundown of what it's all about?
Well, it originally started off as a screenplay, and we're going back now 21 years ago. And this is about movie industry stuff. So I had finished the post-production on my feature film, which that took a couple of years, and I decided I needed to write something new, and I didn't want to do it in a truly independent vein because sometimes due to budget constraints your story suffers. So I went all out with this, but the overall theme of Bob Non-Union Psychic. Now, non-union is a metaphor, of course. It could have been anything. It could have been guild, group, club. It doesn't matter. It's just a metaphor. The initial concept is how. Not fighting, but, do you really have to put up with, or do you really have to keep impressing the gatekeepers, that studio, that agent, that publisher? If you believe you have the skills to do it yourself, then just do it yourself and put it out in the world and kind of just say, hey, look, I got something quality and story-wise that can potentially rival bigger companies. The product is there, the story, the entertainment is there. So maybe it's kind of a little bit of a needle to comic book fans to say, check something new out. Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff around 80 years and plus, but there's some cool new indie stuff out there. So the initial concept is fighting the gatekeeper. If Bob's a hairstylist, like we mentioned, a barber. He owns his own business. Does he work for another salon? No, he has his own independent business. He's a renegade psychic. Why? Because can he get into the true psychic union, the establishment? you have to jump through hoops. Sometimes you know how it is. It's who you know. It's political. But he's a true talent. He's the guy that has all the tools, and ultimately, he still stays independent because your independence is your freedom. Your independence is basically what's at stake, rather than just working for someone or being part of an organization. Sometimes you just have to go indie and make it happen. So that's the overall general theme of the books. And then of course it's just the story elements. It's having a pretty good protagonist and a group of people surrounding him. So the vibe of the book, in a sense, is I still always lean cinematically, movie-wise. So the book itself is kind of written, all three books, like 30-minute episodic television. So, I mean, it's kind of set up that way so that you can have a good pacing within panels and pages. Mm-hmm. So that's how we unravel the stories. And Bob Zero, the first book in the big compilation of the Big Book of Bob, is just the introduction. So that's basically the actual screenplay condensed to 30 pages. So we took every element we had and we condensed it and threw it out to the world to see, hey man, is this worth it? And then the reviews and some of the awards and stuff that we got back, the feedback was awesome. So we were like, well, let's now do a book one. Let's really go for broke. And each story is a one-off, but it has an overall theme and a mild through line. And sometimes when you get compilations and what have you, sometimes it's a big one through line, and sometimes it can get a little tired.
Yeah.
And we were kind of like, no, let's have some running themes, but let's do 3 one-off books. So that in a sense, it's kind of fresh every time you read it. It's not, you don't have to really rehash. It's like, hey, this is pretty cool. But wherever book you start, I do believe it's going to take you back to book 0 so you can read through it. And so that was the initial gist. And plus changing up some styles. So, we have our first Bob Zero book, which is really, it got some saturation. It's really indie. It has contrast and texture. And then Francisco said for book 1, he wants to do more Rembrandt, more Renoir with those color schemes, because we're going back to 18th century France, and it looked great. And I would feed him movies. He would be like, well, give me a movie example. So I would send him Amadeus or Barry Lyndon, Stanley Kubrick, and say, just look at these styles, but let's really just go crazy with the production design. And for Bob 2, he was like, well, what movie should I be looking at? And I was like, like Batman Returns, The Shining, The Thing. If you look at the book, it's cold. You can see the coolness in the book, the warmth in book 1, and the saturation in book 0. So we still maintain an overall theme, but the idea is night isn't night everywhere in the world. It's different. Day isn't day everywhere in the world. So let's up the game and see what we can do visually to stimulate people. And then there's the story. Bob's got to battle evil. He's paranormal. He has a sight. It's not a superpower. He's just more in tune with nature, which creates a pretty good duality as a hairstylist, because, you got to come into contact with people. You got to touch them. But the idea is, well, he still wants people to look good. He wants to give confidence to people. So, people may not think their hairstylist is a hero, but they are. They're a mechanic. They're a dentist. So this is kind of what we were after. But, I had to go with hairstylist because I was like, it's a job you can take anywhere. You can travel the world with it if you need to. Yeah. So, overall, that's the general idea of what Bob Non-Union Psychic is.
Awesome. I really dig the whole. You don't hear many of our guests really dive into what you just did, where you talk about the warmth and the coolness of the issue, and depending on the story, so that's really cool. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut. Were you about to say something there? I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was muted. I didn't notice that. Yeah, I was saying that a psychic can mean a different thing depending on the culture, depending on where you're from. Like it can be a shaman if you were a Native American. It can be a narcissist if you were a Catholic. It can be many things. But when you did your research, and I don't know if you've done that, because you can't just take your own route and do whatever you think it could fit in what you think of a psychic. But if you did it, were you trying to be consistent to what people believe of psychic can be, or did you just take your own way of interpreting and you put that into your character and you went free on creating it? What was your strategy?
Well, yeah, there was research. So for some weird reason, when I was writing the script decades ago, there was a big like psychic community out here in Denver, Colorado. I don't know why. They had the psychic headquarters. It was like 3 miles from my house. Supposedly, legitimate psychics. This is where you go to get the real deal. Don't go anywhere else. This is how they advertise. So I went there. They had a library. They had psychics on hand that were reputable. Okay. So I went through the experience to see, okay, what's this all about? And it's extremely interesting. And what I really had to do is I had to scale things back and say, okay, if a person has a special ability, even if it's a stronger sense of smell or sight, I wanted to apply it generally to Bob to say, okay, it isn't so much about good and bad. As it is just about energy. We all feel vibes. You can feel it on people. Who's the psychic vampire in the room that's just going to suck your energy out, right? And it's like, that's a real thing. But if you have a heightened sense of it, then maybe you can battle it a little better. And that's kind of where I put it into a general sense for Bob. He can see, and he doesn't know when it's going to happen, past, present, future. That's why he doesn't like to be touched. He can see the energy on people walking into a room. He knows if someone's got a bad vibe. There's an aura. So, and if you look close in some of the art, we have auras around certain people, and people may overlook it. There's some people that catch it. They're like, oh, that person's aura was really cold. I see what you guys did with that. And I was like, yeah, that's his sight. So I did do quite a bit of research first, and then I had to scale it back because yes, there is Native American, there is Greek, there is Indonesian and Vietnamese. I mean, European. You look at the idea of what a psychic could be, and I thought, well, I gotta kind of find an equal playing field here, so that I think people can grasp it and maybe even look into their own folklore, which is basically what we like to strike. We want to strike folklores of different cultures, and that's why we do European. That's why we kind of go the Wendigo, Native American. That's why we do all those things, because it's like, we don't want to limit ourselves to one geography. We want to be able to expand this to the world. So, research and kind of finding our own playing field, not only in the screenplay, but in the comic book itself. It's like, okay, it's got its own vibe. So we're running with it, and we're spelling it out. We're spelling it out more specifically as we go. So we have 4 more books written. So we're going crazy on the next 4 books and 1 spinoff already. So it's like, okay, we're going to expand that world, but we're taking it globally. Greek. We're going all over the world with it. Mayans. Anywhere where we can grasp energy and a vibe, that's where we're going.
That's awesome.
That sounds great.
Huh.
And you are aware of the fact that if you put that out 30 years ago, people would just think you were a nutcase. Like it wasn't well received at all. Now we can talk about that, and even OBEs and astral projection, things like that. And NDEs. And do you think, have you seen that kind of big wave coming, or was just something that you were thinking of doing long before that?
long before that. You know, the screenplay landed on a couple of studios a long time ago, and it looked promising. And the vibe always was, it's too expensive. You're too new. We don't know who you are. We got to go with something tried and true. Once again, a gatekeeper, right? Slamming the door in your face. And I would have rather have heard, you suck. It's no good. Go away. Because at least that's not gray. But I didn't. It was like, hey, this is awesome. This is great, but we can't touch this. So that's what started to make me think, well, you know, there's got to be a different outlet. And when I contacted Adam Voley, who was the comic book guy, and I'm the movie guy, I was like, hey, what can we do with this? And he's like, we need to go for this. He goes, I think the timing is right for it. And that's 6 years ago. So I think, you know, your time is your time. You can't force it. And anything artistically that we do, you know, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. You just got to keep at it. So Bob's been in the making. You know, by the time we did book 0, that's already 14, 15 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where did the idea originally come from for the story? How did that develop and come about?
It was me thinking about, you know, not just two people in a room talking. It was like, how can we be very grand about this and travel the spectrum and time and all over the world? And just, you know, add the element of eye candy to it, with a great character that you just don't see coming. So his lineage, as you see in book 0, goes back 1,000 years with clerics that were psychics in the day. You know, they were thought to be a little bit more special than they probably were. Even people that don't use it the way they're supposed to, like a pirate. You know, he has an ancestor that was a pirate. So we wanted to get both spectrums. You can use it for good or bad. If you have that sight, what are you going to do with it? And then we have his great grandfather who basically pushes him. Now, we all know how our families influence us. It can be good or bad. And it's basically his great grandfather who is the alumnus of the Psychic Union. He is a badass. And we, of course, not giving anything away, we see why he was somewhat kicked out of that organization. But he's pushing Bob to get in there because it's legit. You know, he wants him to go full out, stop cutting hair. That's ridiculous. You need to just be out there saving the world and being a superstar. So that's why we have that good character element between Gramps and Bob. And we didn't want it to be sidekickish, and we didn't want it to be too mentorish, like an Obi-Wan or a Miyagi. This is a guy who's severely made mistakes in life. And should you be listening to his advice? Probably not, but it goes that route. So, you know, you add that family dynamic to it. And I think that really adds a lot to a story. So family dynamics is one thing I went to look to see, okay, what other elements can I put into the story for this adventure? You know, just to see if he can qualify to get into an organization he really doesn't want to get into. You know what I mean? We all want to stay independent and do our own stuff. Everybody has the dream. Oh, we're going to work for this studio, and I'm going to do these movies, and I'm going to do those movies. And I'm kind of like, I don't want to do that. I want to do what I want to do, and I don't want to be a run and gun guy doing that for a living. It's about independence. And, you know, seeing how the movie industry was a couple decades ago, of course, it's not any better. But I'm like, you know what? I don't need to put up with this. I already made a feature film, and I didn't do it with any help from a studio. I'm going to make comic books. I'm going to do it without any help from a publishing company or a label. I got this. So I say overall, it comes from a life experience and finally just drawing a line in the sand and saying, you know what? I'm not waiting for anybody. I got a story here. I'm getting it out to the world.
I love it. So I heard Scott Snyder say, and he's one of the biggest writers in the comic industry right now, right? And he was saying how every arc he comes up with has him inside of it, and it just changed my whole, you know, viewpoint on comic scripts and stories and story arcs. You know, when you were saying it on the Comic Crusaders show, where, you know, basically you know, wanting to make movies and like you said, the gatekeepers, and you just talked about all that here, but when you throw yourself into it, it can just get so much deeper, you know, and you can just tell the story you want and come up with the world around the theme of it. And I think a lot of new creators in the comic world that are struggling to come up with a story or a script, an idea, like they really need to take it back a notch and just think, you know, what's going on in their life right now that's difficult, or, you know, something they're trying to overcome, and then come up with a story around that. And it adds so much to the plot. It's not just some popcorn flick. It adds more weight to the whole story. So that's really awesome to hear. So, and I was just rambling, so I don't know if Joel showed this yet. Did you show this comment, Joel?
I did not show it yet. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let you ramble.
Yeah. So, anyways, I say that because you could see it from page 1 on, you know, when you talked about, him not wanting to be part of the union, and do his own thing and not worry about the gatekeepers. I think that a lot of new creators can really pull from that. So just wanted to make a side note there for anyone else that watches that's, you know, trying to come up with an in-depth script when they're trying to write the thing. It's so important to add some of that elements to it. So.
Right.
Yeah. I have a friend in the comic industry, and he says, like, I make comics because I don't have the money to make movies. And I think that kind of summarizes what we feel about it, because everyone here is addicted to the telly. But you need a bunch of people to do that, and so much money. And when it comes to comics, like, you can do your own thing. And maybe if people like it, like, you can think, I'd say, going on further, maybe submitting to the big ones, and maybe to try to make it to break into the movie industry, which is not so hard nowadays, because most of the great series out there, they're based on comics. Like, we see it through Netflix, Amazon, you know, not to mention Disney and the other streaming channels out there. So when you wrote your comic book about the psychic, were you envisioning that kind of possibility, or it's a project that's entirely encapsulated to be a comic book?
Well, originally I wanted that feature film. You know, originally I wanted it. I wanted that feature film, and that was the ultimate goal, to get it to the big screen, which nowadays means the small screen. So it's a weird duality how things have turned out. But the idea of the story, you know, I thought I wanted to get it out there no matter what. As a filmmaker, obviously, this is something that I thought was out of my realm of possibility to do as a production, to do as a film. And now it's not, because as Warehouse 9 has been producing short films and doing very well on the festival circuit and getting a lot of attention, just last year, the idea was as well, you know, I don't want to do a fan film. You know what I mean? That's somebody else's licensed material. I don't want to do that. But I have Bob. So that's where it came into, let's expand the world. Now, of course, we have the website. We have the comic books. It's like, you can go look at character dossiers. You can go look at location, where all the major locations are. It's giving an audience something more than just a book. So now let's do a spin-off of the books. So the Maya Theater Troupe will be a spin-off. You know, it's like, okay, let's go back and see what Gramps was doing with his crew 50 years ago. All right, that's in the works. And then it's like, all right, I'm a filmmaker, so now we're going to do a film spin-off. And that's what Coiffure Extraordinaire Waiting for Legros about. I mean, we're in production. But I didn't want to do like Bob himself. I said, well, let's do something off kilt, but let's tie it into the books. So that's why we did Legros. and it ties into so much more because the guy was real. You know, he was a real hairstylist in 18th century France. There's a historical element tied to him. So you get a little bit more out of the book because we threw in some history. You get a little bit more out of the book because we're elaborate with the website. But now the filmmaking aspect comes into play, and that's what I do. So it only makes sense to do a short film spin-off of it. That's what Warehouse 9 does. So, and it's always genre pieces. Like, I don't want to do anything modern as well. So that's another reason why I scale back from Bob a little bit. I'm like, let's go 200 years ago instead, because it's more challenging. All right, I got the wigs, I got the costumes. We're shooting on film. I shoot everything on film. I don't shoot any HD. Doesn't matter if we're doing a Western. Doesn't matter if we're doing a comedy 80s cop short film. I think this ties into it just perfectly. And you got to have a reason to make a film other than just whatever blood and guts or whatever's going on, superheroes with capes. You got to have a reason. So my idea is I'm just not making this new short film for the sake of. I'm tying it into the Bob world. So now I want to hit it on a comic book front and on a feature front. Those two the literary and the visual aspects is a plus to your brand, to your company. So Warehouse 9 Productions is a company. There's no playing around. Things are contracted. There's legalities. If you want to play like the big leagues, you got to be the big leagues, or at least in your mind, try to be. That's what I'm all about now. So the future of Bob, looks promising. More books, more movies, and maybe even that feature that I've been after for 20 years.
That's great. Yeah, when I saw on your site that you use real film too, I was like, yes, like it's so rare now these days to see that sort of thing. And I have friends in the industry that they drool over any chance they get to see something that was shot on actual film. So I was going to ask you though. So obviously you were writing it as a script initially, and you switched to comic script. What was that like, going from film script to comic script and learning the differences there? Because was this your first actual comic script when you wrote the issue 0 of Bob?
Yes, it was my first comic book script, and Adam Voley, co-writer, he had the gist of the formatting and what needs to be put into the panels and so forth. So basically, I was like, I can dig that, but let's kind of modify our own screenplay template. So it's basically a screenplay template that's slightly modified so we can get to page numbers and panel numbers a little faster, so there's no confusion during production. And my whole initial thought was too, once again though, stepping back and saying I feel more comfortable with doing 30-minute episodic style sitcom rather than your traditional comic book structure. I wasn't into that because it's too redundant to me. I see it too much. We've all seen it too much. So we agreed that let's go for that sitcom element. Let's pace it out like a sitcom, like an episode of Seinfeld. Let's do that. And I thought, okay, we can do that by condensing it from the screenplay. So we had source material, and we knocked out Bob Zero relatively fast and relatively easy. We were like, hey, this went pretty dang smooth, and it plays out pretty fun. Did we do it right? Well, I don't know. This is a radical concept. We weren't sure, but you take the risk. And then it was all about me learning, okay, what does a layout really look like when you hand it to the artists? And then when I first saw a layout, I was like, what the hell is this scribbly mess? I was like, what is this? I don't understand this. Then he had to explain it. No, it's just what the general layout of the page is. Okay, I get it now. Understanding, how many panels you should have on a page, understanding how many words you should have in the balloons, pushing it a little farther from that to make sure the story is poignant. But still, even though the scripts were solid, you hand it over to the illustrator, and they are now the director, which that I was not used to. I will blatantly admit, I'm like, I'm not so sure about this, but he's the professional. And when the pages started rolling in, it was like Christmas. It was like your birthday. You're opening a new file and seeing this and going, this guy's got it. So I don't have anything to worry about. That was the biggest hurdle for me. It was like, okay, if something wasn't if he illustrated something that we specified in the script, and I said, well, what's the deal with that? You know, tell me your ideas. And he would just say, I think it works better that way. Whoa, okay. You know, and then I'm like, well, he's right. So we'll go with it. You know what I mean? You check your ego at the door and you're like, all right, no, he's right. But I just want to know what the logic was. And he'll say, hey, that flows better kinetically if we did it this way. You're right, it flows better. So Adam and we would get together and we'd be like, okay, so now new opportunities are presenting itself for story. Do we need this bit of dialogue? Because now he's nailing it on the page. No, we really don't. So you can't fall in love with your script. It's like, okay, it's changing. It's evolving. Or you get to other pages and go, wow, we have space here to add another line. We can progress the story forward if we put something poignant here, or we need a joke that for this character to round him out. So the screenplay writing process, boom, it's solid. Then you get into production and things are going to change. And it's always nice because it's a collaborative effort. I mean, the roadmap is there. And then the finished product, you look back on and go, wow, I don't remember we did that, but it's cool. You know what I mean? It wasn't planned. So I think the transition was not unlike filmmaking, but tremendously easier. But the concept and working with talented people is the same. They're going to give you something. And that's what I look for. You know, what is my co-writer going to give me today? And then when it pops up and I'm like, that's funny or that's great. Doesn't matter how radical. Freedom. Even if Francisco had an idea, what do you think about this character design? That's better than we originally thought. Let's go with that. Or he'll say, I don't like that page. Can you give me a minute to redo it? And we knew it was going to be better. So I was like, sure, go ahead. Right. So even though we have contracts and time frames, he was like, can I have these 2 pages back? Yeah, sure. You know, just do it. I can wait another 2 weeks. Let's see what you got. So I think having said that, you let the art speak for itself. Yes, you have budgets. Yes, you have time frames. But there are times where you've got to let your collaborators breathe, you know, and that's what I had to learn to do ages ago. Let your collaborators breathe. Give them a moment to breathe. You'll know if they got it. So, You know, that's how it worked out. And, you know, we're pleased. We're very pleased with it.
Yeah, you nailed it though, right? You got to leave your ego at the door. And like with our first comic, Yule, I was writing it as a novel, not a screenplay, but I was doing it as a novel. And when we decided to do a comic, and you know, I was starting to write like narration boxes, not dialogue, but just explaining some of the story. And you know, Joel was like, we don't need it. The art tells that part. You don't need that there. It's redundant, you know? And I was, you know, at first I was like I'm like, well, that's like the script, you know, like I feel like that should be there. And then when he sent it, I'm like, you're absolutely right. So yeah, I mean, it's so important to have that relationship where you just got to trust the artist, at the very least, trust them enough to see what they're doing. You know, obviously you don't always have to agree, but you know, see their ideas out, you know? So, so that's makes so much sense. But, I wanted to show the trailer, for, Bob here, if we can do that. So pull that up and make sure I'm sharing the audio because I'm notorious for not doing that. So I'll pull it full screen here. We'll just play that and then we'll come back here. So
awesome. That's rock and roll, man.
Yeah, that's
There you
awesome.
go.
I love it.
Yeah, one of the things
Yeah.
I like that you didn't do is put a voiceover on it. And our friend out in Hollywood, Scotty, makes trailers, and he was talking about that. He said, you don't need a voiceover over it. You can just let the images, tell the story for you. So I'm glad you kind of did the similar thing there in his recommendation. So it looks great, man. That thing's killer.
Awesome. It's fun to do too, especially when you have those art assets to work with. Those high resolution art assets, and it's like, okay, I can get Ken's burns through them. I can make ghosts appear or disappear. It was that's one thing I wanted to do early on, quite a few years ago, and it struck a chord with people. They were always asking, "Hey, where'd you get your trailer made?" I'm like, I made that, man. That's that's my gig.
Yeah,
You have a big difference. A lot of creators miss that mark. They kind of hodgepodge it together. It's very important because that's what you kind of lead with to somebody coming into your project that doesn't know your project or had seen it yet.
Right.
An important aspect of the whole entire thing. For sure.
Exactly.
It definitely looks like a hit. The art is amazing, and I am not the type of guy who buy a book by its cover, but the cover is so great I would go straight to buying it. Sometimes I do, and I get disappointed with the story. But when the art is great, you don't have to work that much to make it a good book. And I'm sure you have worked a lot on the script. And look at this. Have you interfered on the cover concept, or was 100% by the artist?
I had a basic concept of Bob sitting in a throne with his cohorts, and the extra art in the book will lay out concept designs of that cover, plus several more. I always say, this is my idea, but just go crazy with it. Give me other concepts and ideas. And normally we're overwhelmed. It's like, okay, these are all so good, but let's take elements of all of them if we can and combine them. But my overall concept was I wanted him in a throne with his people around him and the symbol behind him. And that was kind of about it. And Francisco came up with the energy and the old stone look, like that symbol has been around for thousands of years, and all the entities trying to converge on him, but he's protected because of his psychic shield. So, I mean, he nailed it on that one. I mean, he nailed it on all of them. But this one, we kept secret for a very long time because I just had this printed up as a poster. It's on my wall.
Oh yeah, I would too. It's
I
awesome.
look at this all the time.
Right.
Looks great.
Now Francisco's doing everything too. He's doing the coloring, the lettering, and all of it also, or just the
Wow.
penciling.
He does everything. He's all in one package. So he'll
Wow.
do the inks, he'll do the coloring, he does the covers. I do the simple graphics on the covers and in the interiors of the books. Kurt Hathaway does the lettering, but Francisco, I mean, he actually vied for it because we were shopping it out, the cover, and then he was like, "Can I try a cover?" I'm like, "Sure." Then when he did, it was like, "All right, you win. That's it."
That's awesome.
How dare we shop it out? We should.
Right, and he gets the idea because originally he's an animator, so he was getting the cinematic ideas I was passing by. When I'd say more saturation, he got it. If I say more texture, he'd get it. You know, I'm like, sometimes in comic books in the background, it's just a bland color or something, and I'm like, no, give me some texture, man. Give me something to make it look like there's something there, and he does that awesome layering job where you can actually see through the energy, the psychic, the shields, and the ghosts. So he took it, he approached it as an animator, but his layout is 100% comic book. It's like, okay, this is a perfect marriage. We got it. So he's our guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a great stylized look. You can pick right up on that. Like, he's almost got a definitive style right out of the gate where I could. Now, if I saw something similar in the next title, like, yeah, there's a Francisco work. So that's a hard thing to do, man, is to have your own style that people can immediately pick out. So I could see that.
You have a 128 page book out there, which is, for me, it's impossible to think about that amount of pages, to draw. And what was the biggest challenge of carrying on such a big project? What was the hardest part?
Scaling back the stories, because I mean, we had a definite page count in mind for Bob Zero. We got to hit this page count, and we did. Then when we got into the Bob One, we were ended up with 60-page scripts. It was like, how do we scale this down to a one shot again? So we compromised, and I reevaluated the budget, and the book is a little longer. So like Bob Zero is like all said and done 36 pages. I don't like the run of the mill 26, 24 page book. Sometimes I think there's not enough there. So the running theme after this with me and Adam and I said it, I'm the producer, you let me worry about it. We need to make sure the story is there. So we don't have to focus so much on page count. So each book got longer and longer, and rightly so. And that's why I put in the extra scene, the missing scene, as a supplemental material in the book. I mean, there was a great scene, and the designs we had for him were phenomenal. When Bob's fighting the Death Heads, the flying Death Heads, before he meets a major villain, and we didn't have room for it in the book. And we were already at, I think, 38 pages. So the biggest challenge is we have a lot of story. Now, yeah, Bob's got a lot of art. And we were worried about, the audiences. Is it too wordy? And we're thinking, no, it's not. The story progresses the way it needs to. So as an independent, I can say that. We don't have to cookie cutter this like everybody else. Let the story be everything it needs to be. And if we absolutely know for sure we don't need it, we cut it out. So that was the challenge. Budgets were extended for each book. I'm not going to say we went over budget, but money was there to say, okay, let's pay Francisco to do this because it's only going to benefit us in the end. Let's not fall short on this. Let's take our time. And we did go over schedule on one book where I missed a release date that I wanted. And it was like, okay, nope, I don't want the book to suffer. We're going to take this extra 3 months to do it right. So that's what we did. Yeah, the challenge is story. We got characters and story that we have to balance out. Pages, tell your story. You know what I mean? Don't limit yourself. Just tell the story. Go all out. If you don't, you're selling yourself short. So we made sure we did not sell ourselves short. That's why this book's pretty fat, you know. And it's good for the fans. Let the fans have more. You know, that's what it's all about. You're there to please them.
Yeah.
So let's go for it.
Yep, I agree. You know, sticking to the standard, 24 pages. That's what we've done so far for the first few books. But I've mentioned to these guys, like, making bigger books just seems logical at this point. I was telling Joel, working on issue 3 of Yule, writing the script, I'm like, man, I want this book to end here. Like, I have this last page in mind. Like, this is what I want book 3 to end with, but there is absolutely no way I can fit that in 24 pages, So I'm either going to have to end the book at a different spot. We're going to have to add more books to the series, or I'm going to have to do a bigger script and just say, screw it. We're doing a bigger book, so I 1,000% agree with that. Just tell the story, write the story out, see how many pages it is, and then see what you got to do to work around that. So,
right.
That's the whole point of being independent. Like, you can go crazy and you can go bankrupt as well. But
yeah.
I understand that we have to follow some kind of format that is working. But when it comes to a project which is as big as that, like, you just do whatever you have to do, to let it out.
Yeah.
It's a hard decision to make sometimes, because you might or might not get your money back. You never know, because it's a kind of a bet you do when you release something. And
it's always a bet.
Yeah, even if it's great, maybe it's not the right time for it. Maybe people are not, I'd say, are not so interested in what you think they are. It's a bet. It's very hard.
Well, it kind of goes back to what Lance was saying too, with the whole gatekeeper thing, right? Is you see some of the big movies coming out, and you're just like, how the hell did that even get to that point? Like, why are we watching this? And it has this huge budget. It's terrible, And then you see some independent films where it's like, holy shit! Like, how is this not getting recognition? This is amazing, And it's no different in the comic world. I mean, you see some indie books that are just flat out incredible, that no one knows about, and then you read some of the big 2, books, and you're like, okay, this has been done 1,000 times.
Yeah, sometimes it's not about being good, it's about being consistent, because so much crap out there, and they are making, make the big notes, make big money, and some independents, as you said before, like, are still trying to break in. But I did think there's a large following from whatever you do. The big challenge now is just to get their eyes, to get their attention.
Always.
It's very hard to do that, because so much competition out there. It's not about being good. Like, I gave up being good. I want to be consistent. I want to be consistent. That's it.
Oh, don't sell yourself short, Rosario. You're great.
No. I know. I'm not too bad, but I don't have to be the greatest, or even one of the greatest. But if we are consistent and keep on doing, knock the doors. Like, it doesn't have to be great, but you have to have, like, a big curriculum to back you. And this is why you see so many good people who are just tired of the market, because they know they're good, but they can make it. And it's hard. It is terrible, but it is what it is. Like, we can't escape that.
Well, I think you got to be excited about it, man. I'm excited about Bob. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've been excited about Bob for 2 decades, and it's not diminishing one bit. It's like, if sometimes I look for that in people too. You could see if they're beat down, but it's like, but wait, you're creating. We're not all going to get the $1 million contract. We're not all going to, it's not every project's going to be the windfall or the mother lode. But if there's enough eyes on it and people like it, sometimes that's all you need. There's your validation. But I do believe in quality. I do believe in not selling your audience short. I want to give, when I give entertainment, whether it's a feature, a 10-minute film, or a comic book, I want their eyes for that whole moment. You know what? That's kind of my goal. But times, are changing in the way of, we've been beat down, by the studio system and what they're force feeding us. But this is nothing new. But I think in the last 10 years, it's been worse than I'd ever seen it in my life. We do see the same thing over and over again. And it's like, I understand that's there, but there's so much other cool stuff that we can be checking out. And you got to search for it. You can't, as a fan, you can't be lazy. You got to look for it and not wait for it to come to you. And then, of course, you got to keep pushing it. You got to stand on that table and just scream, "Look at me," over and over again. You got to stand on that table and do it. So, as far as the films go, you go to a festival, you meet a person, you shake a hand, things happen. But now with what's going on in the world and what have you, that's being stymied a bit. There is the virtual thing, but it is not the same as human interaction. So the idea is, once again, is to get a physical book in people's hand. That ups the bar. That's up in the game right there. Not digital files are great and all, they're convenient, but that book, that physical thing in a person's hand, is so sexy. People still love that. I don't think they'll ever get over that, no matter how much free content they're going to get on their phone. I don't think they can ever get over the fact that you can hold the book in your hand, or if I shoot film, I got celluloid. You can feel it, you can smell it. Yeah, it's right there, and the image on it is timeless. So in a sense, that's, as artists, that's what we're trying to do. Sometimes we may not know that, but I think I kind of tuned into that a long time ago. My art just isn't my entertainment, and it isn't just a livelihood. It's, am I satisfied with it? Can I wake up in the morning and go, yeah, man, this is pretty cool, And I think that is basically 50% of the battle. If you don't have that, you're going to sell your product short.
Yeah, and the passion is just so important to have. So to hear that you still have that after that long for your character, I mean, that's awesome. We talk about, we don't care if we lose money on the project, obviously you want to make money, but at the same time, we're doing this to tell a story, and, we go to bed at night, we don't write something or don't draw something or don't, you don't film something. It's like, you feel like you didn't do something productive that day, and you just, it eats at you. So I wouldn't change anything when it comes to wanting to create, whether I get rich off it or I barely make any money as a hobby on the side. I use the term hobby, not in that it's not taken seriously, just in that, we have the day job going still, and, we're not doing this as a starving artist. We're doing this because we want to do this and, tell our story. So, you nailed it there.
I'm a starving artist.
Yeah, I think, one thing to your point, Lance, too, you mentioned quality a couple times, and we're kind of running into some of those issues with some of the books we're putting out, is we want to, ultimately have the best quality product we can, and we've run into printing delays, right? Because, like you said, everything going on in the world. We could settle for a subpar printer that doesn't put out as good quality, but we don't want to do a disservice to our fan base for that. So we're willing to go the extra month, 2 month, 3 month, like we have to get you the exact quality product on. And we nerd out on stuff, man. We're looking at like the certain quality of paper, what the finish looks like. All of that stuff's very, very important. Everything is thought through, from the box to the packaging to the book itself. So we want to maintain it. We're not going to compromise because there's some other things going on in the world right now that and settle. So so we've had some people looking for status of their books, and they're a little bit delayed because we just ran into the worldly events that are happening. So, but it will be a quality product when it lands in your mailbox. That's always what we strive for. So
right,
it's the best that we can do.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Control all of it always.
Own your product, and that's one thing that, when people reach out to me and try to figure out what I'm doing, especially if it's a comic book or on film, one thing I remind them of is, well, Warehouse 9's a legitimate company. It's a legitimate corporation. And what goes with that is the responsibility to keep it that way, to be legit. So, you can't sell yourself short on that. I mean, if you want to be treated like a professional, act like one. So that's what we strive to do. try to be classy, try to be cool about it, and just have fun. Why be pretentious? There's no point. There's no point in it.
Yeah. We haven't really talked too much about the film side of things there. Your background there. You mentioned a few of the shorts, that you've, or at least the themes that you've done, Western, so forth. So how's your background go with the film industry and whatnot? How early on did you get into films? And, I think when I was looking at the films you had done, you've been doing it quite a few years. But how did that all start? And I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling here. I'm trying to think of the way I want to word my question here. But just I guess we can just start with your background in the film industry, how it all started, and so forth.
Once again, it's an independent thing. I mean, I grew up with a family that really dug cinema. It didn't matter. I was always dragged to the drive-ins and movie theaters and by uncles and whoever. And sometimes I was seeing things that I shouldn't have been seeing at early ages. But that the point is I was exposed to this process that was just, blowing me away. So, going way back, it's like, okay, what struck me first? Yeah, I remember seeing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in the movie theater. And then I saw Jaws like 2 weeks later, and it was like, whoa, what the heck is this? I think it helped being a product of the 70s and 80s because, those are a second coming of cinema versus the 60s, 50s, 40s. But I was always exposed to it and it always fascinated me. But then I also was always around a bunch of joke tellers, storytellers. It was always a one-upmanship where I came from. It was always who's going to get the punchline and who's going to be the star in that room. And I'm like, yeah, I gotta work this out. I need to be the star of this room. You know what I mean? And the storytelling of it, just the aspect of, okay, can I get that story right? Can I get you? Can I hold your attention? And then it evolved. It evolved into, well, I think one of the greatest artistic expression is film. I mean, you do everything: the photograph, the script, production design. It encompasses everything, science, art. So I couldn't think of doing anything cooler. But being a native kid from nowhere, it was like, okay, how am I going to do this? You figure it out. Yeah, I was accepted into several film schools back in the late 80s or early 90s, and then started to realize I'm not sure if this is the right route to go, because when I talk to film school people, and if that's your gig, that's cool. It wasn't mine, but I started to hear a canned answer for everything cinematic. You know what I mean? Like, did you all go to the same school and learn the same thing? I don't want to do that. So whatever money I had and getting a profession, I said, I'm going to produce my own films because I think it has more credibility if you can do that. But first, I did go to LA. I did live in LA for a while. But the cool people I talked to, this is the days where, predates internet, where you can call in the morning or the afternoon and you talk to the producer you want to talk to. This is a whole different era.
Yeah. And
they will, oh, wow, that's cool. You can drop your short movie off over here. I'll take a look at it. And they would. How old are you? Wow, you're really, 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 really young. We can't really invest in a person that young. You're not seasoned. And plus, you don't shoot on film. So in the old days, there was a line in the sand. You're a videographer or you're a filmmaker. And if you're not a filmmaker, you're not making it. They want to know if you can do sync sound. They want to know if you can handle color correction. They want to know if you know your film stock. They want to know a shooting ratio. So this is where all these producers were telling me. But the biggest thing they told me is, okay, you got a script. Don't make your movie in LA. Where are you from? So I'm from Denver, Colorado. And they're like, well, you got a pretty good infrastructure there, don't you? Yeah, we got a sound stage. We got a rental outlet. We got a processing center. You can buy Kodak film up in Windsor. They're like, go back and do your film in your hometown. Do not do it here. It'll ruin you. And I heard that from a gigantic agent and 2 gigantic producers. And I kept their information. I was like, cool, I'm out. So I left. and I worked for several years, made a short film on film. This is after making a lot of videos to practice on. That short film helped me make my feature film. And once again, this is a marathon, not a sprint. We're going back to the late 90s. So I finished my film, but only last year I finally secured distribution for it.
Wow.
So it was one of those things where, like Joel was saying, you don't settle, man. You don't settle. So I shot a film. It was finished on SD, standard definition. Remember those days? I mean, and I was like, I can't put something out to the world like this. I can't. So I was able to rescan all the negative to HD, 1080p, re-edit the movie, sound mix it exactly the way I want. Yeah, sure, it was shot 23 years ago. Now it's a retro film. And say, this is my finished product. And when I finally had my finished product and I finally got into a festival and I finally won a major award, I won distribution. That's one of those things you gotta see it through, whether it's hook or crook, man. Whether you fail or succeed, you gotta know. You have to get that. You gotta know if you're gonna make it. So, in the festival circuit, people didn't want to watch feature films, attention spans. I finally got into one. It was a hit. I got distribution with a different company, not the one I was awarded, but they're excited. You shot on film. You got a cool film here, man. It's called Hunting for Fish. And it fits in the style of everything I do. You know, there's comedic elements, there's action, and there's a through line. There's somewhat of a theme, but it goes way back, man. We go back decades when it comes to filmmaking now. And I put things on the shelf. I didn't know if I was going to do film again. And then once I finished the feature, I was like, you know what? I got to keep doing it, but I'm going to do it on my own terms. So, you know, it's a budgetary thing too. Believe it or not, my comic books cost the exact same amount as my short films. Why? Because I know what I'm doing. Yeah. And people don't believe that. It's like, no, I know what I'm doing. You know, I know when I'm shooting film, I know what my shooting ratio is, and I'm a photographer. It's going to get done. So it's a new era, though, where now people are afraid of film. They're terrified of it. Where I'm starting to hear this, and so is my distributor, and it's a little disconcerting. It's like, well, what do you mean? This is the king format. This is what everybody loves. And some people now have given up trying to steer me when it comes to shooting HD. Now, I'm not bashing HD. HD has its place in the world. Cinematically, I don't think so. It's now starting to turn into industrial video, cinema-wise. And to me, that is degrading the process. There are great stories out there. And there are people that I've seen with great stories going, dude, shoot it on film. Don't do HD. You're going to stand out. I'm not lying. Look at all the awards we're winning. Look at all the people are wanting to see this. But no, it's too expensive. I can't do it. Don't give up. I refuse. And one thing, I'm going to shoot a Western. If I'm going to shoot a Western out in Colorado on location, I'm not going to do it on HD. I'm going to do it on film, man. It's like, this is the way it should be. You know what I mean? I can't think of any other way. It doesn't matter if it's Super 8. Doesn't matter if it's 16. That's what I'm doing. And the scanning processes we have today are amazing. Super 8 looks amazing. When we went to the New Jersey for the United States Super 8 Film and Video Festival, we won the Audience Award and the Grand Prize. I didn't know what to expect. You know, we went in there, I'm like, Super 8, and we've seen some of the best Super 8 films in the world. And I was blown away. I was like, wow, these people are really good. And we met a really good friend there who's shooting a feature on Super 8. And from what I've seen, it is very impressive. But once again, he's a professional. So that love of film, you know, that love of getting the film stock and knowing that your palette is going to be painted, you know, the way you want it. You're not just running out with a video camera and calling yourself a filmmaker. No. There's a difference. There is a big difference. Trust me. And I think a lot of talented people are selling themselves short. And by doing that, you enter an oversaturated realm, and none of us get attention because even distributors are now, they're inundated with material just being thrown at them. They're like, we can't take any more clients. We can't. It's just too much because everybody's out there shooting something on their smartphone. We can't do it. And now they're looking at films and going, oh, wow, a Western, that's pretty cool. So I hope there's a renaissance happening. It's been a pretty devastating 10 years for filmmakers. But I think the turnaround's going to happen because people just love the way film looks and moves. It's magical. It's dreamy, man. So yeah. I fell in love with that, and I can never get it out of my mind. There's not a day that goes by that I can't get that. It's a high. When you're shooting, you capture that shot, you see that footage, man, that's your adrenaline drug right there. I can't explain it. It's just great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, Lance, I wouldn't even... sorry, go on, Joel.
That's okay. Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, to your point too, Lance, with the film, like you can kind of see that with everything going CGI. Like I'm a child of the '80s too, and I like the old animatronics and puppets and things like that, and it's just a different feel. And like I hope that I think I kind of see some films going back that direction too, where they're starting to use more animatronics and puppetry versus CGI, but kind of going back to that because there's just kind of a look and a feel that you cannot get with CGI. As good as it is, you just cannot pull off those
you
effects.
read my mind. You read my mind out there. I was about to ask a very similar question. That's great.
It's a psychic program, so maybe I'm
it is.
There you go. The theme. We got it going on.
Yeah.
I can see your aura tonight. It's in the frames, right?
It's a very positive aura.
Yeah.
You're on fire, buddy.
You're gonna answer us both now.
Yeah. Well, agreed. Because practical effects are where it's at, and it's real. Using the term loosely, films and movie making, it's fake. It's make believe. Some people don't understand that, but I think that like with the new film Coiffure Extraordinaire, we're pulling out all the stops on that. We are doing puppets. We're doing paper cutouts. We're doing miniatures. I mean, obviously, I can't afford an 18th century carriage with two horses going towards a castle. So, there's a castle that's in Colorado. I photographed it. We put a miniature in a baseball field. We pulled it on a bike path, and I handed it to my special effects artist. It needs to be night. They're cruising up to this castle, and he did it perfectly. We're still marrying digital elements, but my thing is I'm not using like a digital background. We are shooting green screen, but I rephotographed the backgrounds. I made a little 3-foot miniature set, and I put like an action figure where I believe the actors will be, and I pulled focus to it so that when you marry the two images together, you get the same film stock, you get the same color saturation, and you get the same movement of film. Because sometimes people want to integrate digital backgrounds to the extent, well, geez, that looks digital. Like, why didn't you just do rear projection? I think the HD is also, it's too plasticky. It doesn't do service to your performers sometimes because their skin palettes look gray, and it gets muddy because they try to correct it. And you lose your image. And I'm like, well, film, that doesn't happen. And I've gotten into so many arguments with people. It's like, you can't pull shadows out of film. I'm like, yes, I did. I did it with Super 8, and here's the film to prove it. How did you do that? It's called photography. This is what I do. I light it. I shoot it. I know the film stocks. And when I scan it, then I say, okay, the saturation's there, and you pull your image out. But that's all part of the craft, I mean, if you're a painter, whether it's pastels, oils, grease paint, doesn't matter. You're going to slap something on a canvas, and it's going to be awesome. Now, film is analog. It's chemical. HD is an electric signal. It's zeros and ones. They're not the same thing. They'll never be the same thing. So that's why I said I was going to shoot a Western. Nuh-uh. I ain't shooting it on HD. I'm shooting it on Super 8. And I'm shooting it in one of the best places on the planet, Denver, Colorado, where we have sunshine over 300 days a year. I got my natural source. I throw up a reflector. I put people in cowboy outfits. It's sexy. You know what I mean? And then people are like that. How did you get it to look that way? People ask me. I said, it's shot on film. What do you mean it's shot on film? Like real film? Yeah. Oh, that's how you made it look that way. I'm like, yes. the same as everybody you love. The E.T.,
Still make
Star
film?
Wars.
Yes, they
Yeah,
make film. Yeah, right.
they still make
They even
film.
buy film still. Yeah, right.
Yeah. It ain't going away anytime soon. But it takes. I think it takes a little bit more bravery. I need the fellow movie makers out there to step up and put as much into their art as they can, rather than do what everybody else is doing. I don't believe you'll get anywhere by doing what everybody else is doing. I'm an older guy. I've had a lot of time to practice and think about this, so I'm pretty confident in my ability. And it's just all about getting it out to the world. Like you said, get it out to the world. Film's a big deal to me. So are comic books. Storytelling.
Yeah. No,
entertainment creation, content.
Well, I was going to say, we've been wanting to get some indie film creators on the show, so it's kind of a double whammy here. So that's super cool, because indie's indie. Ultimately, it's someone fighting for what they want versus, like you said, keep going back to the gatekeeper comments, right? But it's really no different when you look at indie films, indie music bands, indie comics. It's networking. It's doing your art the way you want to do it, not compromising. And clearly you've done that across the board there. So I wanted to check in here on time. We normally ask up front how much time you have, and we forgot to ask you here at the top of the show. But is there anything else that you want to talk to? I mean, obviously we've talked Bob, we've talked some films here, W9. Anything else you want to make sure we touch on here on the show tonight?
I think we've covered a lot, but whatever you got, I'm ready. I'm at your disposal.
Yeah, I got another one. Like, here in Brazil, being an artist means that two things: either you are crazy or you're on to something, or you have money and you can do whatever you want with it. And so it's always hard everywhere in the world. You guys there obviously have a little bit easier than here. But I want to ask you, how was your upbringing? Like your parents, they did support you, or did you get any backlash from your family, friends? How was it?
It's odd that I get really good support, and they don't know what the hell I'm doing. They don't get it at all. And I'll tell you this, they knew I made the feature, they were involved, but they were like, okay, is that going to be a thing? They knew, they supported me in LA. I mean, I have a pretty good family infrastructure, but when I finally made the Western, because my mom's a Western fanatic, I mean, she knows every Western that's made by every director and who stars in it, going way back. I mean, I'd walk into the house, she's either watching football, basketball, or the Western Channel. And I'm like, oh, Winchester 73 again? Do we have to sit through this during halftime? This is a great Jimmy Stewart movie. Ooh, by the way, 310 to Yuma was on the other night. 1959, Glenn Ford, man, that's one of the best. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty good, And when I made the Western and she finally saw it, she was like, yeah, that's cool. So I'm like, all right, I'm in. You know what I mean? I'm in. She loves the Western. She's got the Blu-ray, and she's like, yeah, it's a crazy ending in that Western of yours, but I like it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you win, mama, you're good to go. Yeah. But the infrastructure was pretty good. I'm the only one in my family of a large family that's doing what I'm doing. But they see progress. They see what I'm up to. I'm not a deadbeat. I try not to have any of the artistic stereotypes. At least I don't think so.
Yeah. That leads to my next question, which is, I'm curious about something like speaking about Western. Like, I read that you have some kind of Native American heritage, if I'm not mistaken.
True.
How is it from the point of view of a Native American to make a Western? Because we are used to watching, John Wayne stuff. It was about killing, the natives. It was about making them pay for whatever. It was quite horrible from the standpoint of what you come from. And how did you change, hopefully, the way people see Western movies, script? How was it? I'm curious about the movie. Like, probably I'm gonna download it somewhere.
It's a tough thing because I think there's some truths that need to be weeded out. But having said that, it's also about the style. I mean, I don't know what it is, but a lot of people in Europe, my special effects guy who's French, Paul Hayden's British, guys I know through Comics Crusaders, Germany, whatever. The Westerns, for some reason, is synonymous with America. But the approach I took to it, a paranormal approach, once again, and the way it was cast is something that people they were scratching their heads about. They were like, well, you have this paranormal female gunslinger. I said, well, yeah, I got to make it interesting, but we don't know what that story is. And then when it came to casting too, like for instance, I had in the script the name of two of the main villains, and the rest were two bandits. That's all I said was two bandits. But Vincent Olin, who is the main heavy in the Western, who's Puerto Rican, it's like he fits the part. Doesn't matter what race he is. He fits the part perfectly, and everybody is like, this dude is amazing. I'm like, he's a great actor. And then I said, I need to fill out these two bandits, and I don't care. I don't care what age. I don't care what gender. And he's like, you'll have a female bandit? I'm like, there were female bandits all the time. I said, he's like, and he said exactly what you said. He's like, I just keep thinking John Wayne and all that. I said, get that out of your mind and think Sergio Leone. All right. We're going Sergio Leone on this. We're going Clint Eastwood. We're going, we're going a little farther than that. So the idea is it is a fantasy adventure, but I think it's also a tale of the mystical land of the West. Those Native American spirits are watching you. They're watching you, and judgment is coming. And that's what it's about. That's what this short film is about. Sometimes the spirit of a bounty killer never dies. That's the catchphrase. Now, is it always going to be the same bounty killer? No, I have the next two written. It could be something different. It's the embodiment, once again, of energy. And a lot of people were a little blown away that I didn't do the stereotypical, male everything. And it's like a lot of my content is heavily female oriented. And a lot of people are a little surprised by that. They're like, how do you find that voice? I have a mom, I have sisters. I have a girl, I know a female voice, I know it clearly. It's okay. So to me, it was very empowering, especially being out here in this land. It's like, wow, the vibe when we were shooting this was just great. And I think it's about, once again, producing quality stuff, entertaining people, but it all just felt right. The bad people get it in the end, and that's all that matters. It was so much fun, and I think that's what it's about. You put out the good vibe. You don't play to stereotypes. People wake up, and they did. When I first saw it on a big screen at the Super 8 Fest, this was so weird. We showed up. Like the director said, by the way, you guys already won, and we're like, what? We haven't
That's
even
awesome.
seen it. He's like, don't say anything. You guys already won. And I was like, okay, cool. He goes, and I put your movie last. And we were like, why? He's like, I need your movie to be last. And we didn't understand. And it was like, okay. So the second to the last movie also won a grand prize, The Heist by our friend Emil Manayasen. An amazing movie. 20-minute Super 8 movie, this heist film he did. And we were like, everybody in the audience was stunned. And then the Western came up. And I was looking around, and jaws just dropped. People were stunned. They attacked us at the end of that showing, like, how did you do it? How did you do it? And it was right. People were saying it was just right. It was cool. And once again, like going back to Bob, you do it right. It feels right. You don't force anything. Just trust your gut. Go for it. So I think it was a positive vibe. And as a native, people were like, you didn't show any negative stereotypes. You didn't do that. I said, no, it's good people, bad people. That's it.
Yeah, that sounds great. And actually, you seem to be taking the hardest route. Like you don't want to follow those types, those stereotypes to make your characters. And that makes it a little harder. That means that you put more energy sometimes than an average creator would put in. Do you feel like that, or is just more like the compensation you get in the end? It's the biggest payoff, in your opinion?
I think that we can all get hung up in tropes. It's very easy to fall into a trope. It's very easy to fall into a typical through line. And I think, yeah, I take the hard route because I don't want to do that. I don't want to see that. I don't want to show that to people over and over again. You know, I want to be able to live with the art indefinitely. You know what I mean? I look back to my film Hunting for Fish. It's not perfect. You know, I was 25 years old. It was my first feature. It was a horrid experience, but I wouldn't change the experience for the world, because after that I got better, sharper, more precise, but I had done a feature. And this was a big deal. It was on the radar for a minute, and then it was like, okay, life intervenes and your time is your time. Yes, it's the hard route. I'm getting older. How much longer can I do this? I just got to keep healthy and keep doing it. You know what I mean? Because things are happening. So you put out good vibes. You put your hands out to the world. You don't be a dick. Things are going to be all right. You know what I mean? Let the other person be a dick. You know, I don't have time for that.
Yeah. No,
that's great advice up there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't be a dick. No, but for real, like you can only make your first impression is huge, right? So if someone sees you as a dick, it's you're not going to get very far. It's going to spread. You know, we've seen it. So there's no reason not to just be friendly with people and try to network and try to grow, especially on the indie side of things. It's going to help you go a long way. So
absolutely.
Also, passion has power. You know, the way you describe the movie, I want to watch it right away. Because we can feel it. We can feel the energy comes from you. It's like when you do something and you are proud of, there's no best feeling. Even if you get an award, it's great for that moment because you know that what you've done resonates to people, but nothing can replace what you feel when you finish something that you think is good.
Right. It's a good, like I said, it's a great high, you know, and to slap the film in the camera, to look through the viewfinder, know that you're capturing it and seeing the end result. It's just like, yeah, you know, I did that. I have great people, you know, I have great people. So that's the other half of it. It's like, you know, you align yourself with the right people, good things are going to happen. And, you know, I believe that. I mean, sometimes we're forced to work with people, but other times, if it's your show, you don't have to settle. And I had a little bit of a reputation for that. You know, some people are like, well, if you're a dick, he's going to fire you, and I'll fire you. You know? I'm like, you got to go. You're not working out, and that's it. Do I get backlash? No, because I wasn't in the wrong. It's like, okay, it's cool. We'll leave it at that and move on. But it's a business. You got to be professional. You got to know how to talk to people. And sometimes that's an art. You know, you're dealing with performers, you're dealing with writers, you know, you're dealing with yourself. So sometimes that's bad enough. You know, I argue with myself all the time as the director, producer, writer, editor. Should I be doing it this way? Oh, this might be bad, but let's go for it. I think it'll be okay. No fear, you know, anything could happen at any time. But the point is if you're prepared, at least you're prepared for something to go wrong, and you can progress forward. So like we were talking about page length and all that stuff, just let the story be told. You know what I mean? You just go for it. Absolutely.
Well,
that's great.
I hope that someday we get to see the Bob feature film. Would you ever consider, because obviously the more you add to this story here, the bigger the whole universe gets. I mean, would you ever see that as a potential series versus the feature film, or is it pretty much in your head like your end goal here is to try to turn this into some big feature film?
I think the end goal would be nice to turn it into a feature film, but I think that the comic book elements, the sitcom elements, can also make it episodic, in many different directions. So, like, once again, we're going back 200 years for the new film, and I can go back 1,000 years too with other characters. You can. It's so rich. You don't have to have the through line of one star, one character. It's Bob's world. He's the catalyst now, but he wasn't 1,000 years ago. So that's why we try to juice in story elements to say, look, we could do a spin-off of these characters, but it's still the Bob world. I could do a feature easily. I have it ready to go. I could do episodic. Now, episodic nowadays has changed. We can get down to 10-minute episodic, like a cartoon in the old days. And anymore, because of attention spans and what have you, I'm feeling comfortable with that. Can I jam a whole story into 10 minutes? An act structure. I've already done it. I proved it. Yes, I can do it. And I'm going to do it again. So that's kind of a theme I'm going for, too, to say, well, episodically, I could do this. So reach for the stars. Yeah, I want that feature. One day it may happen. But for now, I'm living the dream. I'm doing a Bob movie. I'm doing a Bob short movie, and I got a comic book out there. So I can't complain. I feel great, man. It's just like, I want to spread the vibe. It's like, check it out. Everybody's got to check it out. It's fun. It's bottom line. It's just fun. That's it.
I'm running out of stuff to watch on Netflix. So Netflix guys, if you're watching, get after this guy and do this thing. So I need some content.
I'm here. I'm ready.
He's ready.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm not taking any crap, but I'm ready.
Oh man, no, I just to add to what you said, to anyone watching, I mean, definitely go pick this up. Like you said, it's a lot of fun. We've talked about it up front, but the art, the story, the whole concept of it is just, it's so unique, and there's something there for everybody. When I saw there was the Wendigo, in the story, I got pretty excited. I'm pretty fascinated with the whole folklore of Wendigo, and so there's something there for everybody. So definitely go out, pick it up. Where can they get it? They can get it at Warehouse 9, your website there. I'm assuming, can they get it at ASAP Comics website as well?
Yeah, they're both one and the same. Warehouse9pro.com is the main stopping point for all things Warehouse 9. You're going to see movies, you're going to see comic books, you can see everything Warehouse 9 related, which links to anyoneworld.com, or you can go right to anyoneworld.com. Paul Hayden, his team are doing some good stuff over there. I mean, with Messiah, perspectives, points of villainy, points of virtue, ASAP UK Comics, Any One World, they're winners. And it's once again, you throw yourself out to the world. I found a guy, a publisher, a distributor, and I knocked on his door and said, I want you to handle Bob. I got it. Here it is. I dropped it in his lap. They're doing good things. This is the time of the indie. I think we got to remember that we got good stuff here. So let's just keep pushing what we have. Fun, and have fun at the same time. Just have fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're big fans of ASAP. They sometimes, when you chat with people, you can just feel it. You know that it's something, and I definitely got that vibe from them. So Paul and Lori, and they're going to do big things, and it's awesome to get a chance to meet you because of them. Really, like I said, Paul reached out to us. So, like I said, all about the networking and just grow the universe out there in the indie world. So, exactly,
we're all in it together. So let's just cheer each other on.
You got it. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I think that's a good stopping point. You know,
Yeah.
that was a very heartwarming ending to the episode there. So
Yeah, thanks for coming
Yeah,
on.
leaving on
Awesome
a
shows.
high note.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great, man. This was really cool. I'm glad you guys are into stuff. That's always a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We dabble.
Yep.
Thank you, Lance.
Great.
Thanks for having me,
we'll be
guys.
back. You're very welcome. We'll be back Wednesday night with author Christopher Golden. So back Wednesday night, 9 o'clock Eastern. So we'll check you out then. Until then, I hope everyone has a great evening and continues to stay livid.